Joining us now to discuss is CoinDesk Director of Data and Indexes, Galen Moore in Boston. Always a pleasure, Galen. So, listening to the Fed remarks, no surprises there. It already seemed that this tapering was anticipated. Has it already been priced in?
Certainly no reaction from Bitcoin. I know Ether's up quite a bit, and along with the S&P 500 index, I think ahead of the chairman's remarks, the statement issued by the Fed came alongside a jump in the S&P, and that jump kind of took another leap during the course of these remarks over the past few minutes. So I think the market reacting positively, not necessarily to new information, but to just a sense of confidence and staying the course.
So you have a chart actually. We have a chart on the correlation of the markets.
Sure.
Now, so crypto markets have been mixed. So are traditional stocks. Perhaps there's a correlation today, and here we see it slightly rising. It seems.
Yeah, this is Bitcoin's correlation with the S&P 500. It's a correlation of daily returns, 90-day correlation. So, a fairly conservative look, not really looking at what's happened just over the past week or month, but really over a 90-day period. And, creeping up steadily. I think, I kind of tend to divide correlation into basically three categories, like not there at all, weak, or strong. And once you get above 0.3 or below negative 0.3, you get into the kind of strong correlation category. Into the weak correlation category in my book anyway. I think, correlations have to always be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, and they're kind of rough looks at what's happening, but certainly you're seeing Bitcoin and Ether move.
Let's take a look at the ETH chart.
Yeah, Ether's where you really see it's sort of an even stronger correlation there, and you can if you sort of look at the day-to-day move, the movement today upward alongside the Fed announcement and the statement there, that's significant. I think. How can you interpret that? Look, I mean, you have maybe more sophisticated investors who are paying more attention to Ether. That's certainly been the narrative of the past few months. And I think alongside that comes a view of it as a risk-on asset. You have investors who want to be in these assets when they're in a risk-on mode.
Well, ETH jumped to an all-time high yesterday, over $4,600. Do you think it's on its own merits with SHIB skyrocketing, as well as NFTs, the best performing subsector in the crypto industry, or is it only because it's following Bitcoin's path?
Well, look at Shiba Inu. It seems to have stalled, right? And I think that speaks to maybe we're in a situation where where Shiba Inu, where the retail investors that are participating in Shiba Inu, right, presumably, are not necessarily in the driver's seat. I think you're seeing a kind of a market where the gains in the market overall are coming from more sophisticated investors. And by the way, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ether hitting a new all-time high just within the past few minutes here on the strength of that move upward alongside the Fed announcement. I'm looking at the CoinDesk.com price page for Ethereum right now, and it is, it's showing a 24-hour
hitting an all-time high as we speak.
Yeah, $4,668.69.
All right, breaking news, folks.
I believe that's a new high watermark for Ether, and look, I think. It's a big question for Bitcoin. I mean, I think it's interesting to see what's happening with Ether, but the question for Bitcoin is, look, if it's treated as this risk-on asset, what does that do for the narrative vis-a-vis inflation? If you see, Bitcoin going up when there's a risk-on mood and down, you could certainly see, kind of the opposite start to take hold, the opposite narrative start to take hold with Bitcoin. And I don't know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly something to question, whether Bitcoin will continue to have that sort of digital gold, rock solid kind of story.
I was going to mention this later, but Chainalysis came out with reports saying Bitcoin has to it has to expand. It has to grow into Web3. It has to get into DeFi before becoming irrelevant. Something you agree with?
No, I don't disagree. I don't agree with that at all. I think, at least I guess speaking personally, I think there are different reasons to invest in different assets. Bitcoin has that narrative of being the gold-like, ownable digital commodity, right? That's not, gold doesn't change. Gold doesn't have to change. Gold is the same. So I think that's, in some ways kind of, as Bitcoin maybe has made some feints or slight moves in that direction, it may be sort of taking a risk in a way that it will take itself away from what it's meant to be. Ethereum is a very different, it has a very different quality. It's a bet on a kind of a future, a different way of computing, a different way of processing information. That to me seems like just a very different narrative from a narrative of something that you can actually sort of own and hold and verify yourself that exists on the internet.
Let's pivot toward ETFs. So Direxion, they wanted to get a short ETF, Bitcoin ETF approved. They've withdrawn that. Why?
Yeah, I love how you emphasize the dire in Direxion. I mean, look, I think I'd like to sort of say that perhaps the securities regulators are sensible of the very great risk in shorting Bitcoin, right? Like there is no way that we will let the U.S. retail
I dare someone
Bitcoin.
To do it.
That is a bridge too far, right? And I would concur. I think it's probably less to do with the short exposure and more to do with the leverage that's in that product. Notably, the push to next year of the decision on the Valkyrie leveraged ETF that came out yesterday, and I think no surprise then that Direxion took the action of withdrawing their application after that move by the regulator.
What about ProShares, BITO, the Bitcoin Futures ETF that was approved by the SEC, the first one in the United States? How has it been performing?
It's been performing like a Canadian Bitcoin ETF, but with more volume. It seems to have topped out, last I checked, which was this morning, at about 1.2 billion AUM. And that's comparable to the largest of the Canadian spot Bitcoin ETFs, and I think kind of reinforces the narrative that look, there's limited demand for a futures-based ETF. That said, the volume numbers continued, I think, be in the hundreds of millions daily, and that's pretty significant. So not necessarily a sort of a perfect. It's a bit of a mixed story, I guess, in that way.